Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Lauren if you're new here. If you're not new, you probably recognize this handsome fella. Ritzy is joining us while we talk about the best thing, eyeshadow palettes. What I like to do every season is pull the eyeshadow palettes that I feel represent the season of the year the best. So we are now in winter 2024-2025. And these are the eyeshadow palettes that I just feel really represent winter this year. And what I've been reaching for quite a bit lately. So they're not in any particular order. I have 10 of them that I'm gonna show you. And we're just gonna talk eyeshadow palettes while a bunch of Ritzy's fur just is around me, Also, this is going up the day before both Christmas and the first day of Hanukkah. So Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah if you're celebrating either or both. And let's just get into this. Let's talk eyeshadow palettes before I die from inhaling Ritzy's fur. Some of these are old, like older palettes. Some of these are newer. It's a little bit of a mix of both. The way I do this is I just start like rifling through my eyeshadow palette collection. And I typically pull like a pretty big stack of eyeshadow palettes, and then I kind of see which ones I reach for the most during that season. That's kind of how I do this, how I pull these palettes. So it's definitely pretty random. The first one we're gonna talk about is one that is quite a bit older actually, and I'm not sure what happened to this brand, but this is from Lois Cosmetics, and this is the Meet Me in the Underworld palette. And this, let me show you, is a older palette. It's at least 2 years old, maybe a little bit older, but it is just the prettiest jewel tone, but kind of earthy jewel tone colors. And I feel like I've been reaching for quite a bit of more jewel tone colors this winter. I think it really reminds me of kind of the lights and celebrations of the holiday season. And you know, there's a lot of brightness in the air. There's a lot of like really great energy when you're seeing family, and it just gives you kind of that bright feeling. So that's why I pulled this one. I think the jewel tone colors in this palette are so beautiful. I think they did a great job with the formulation. The shimmers are really interesting because they're this really smooth formula. They're not like overly shimmery. There's no chunks of shimmer in this at all, but like it's just right. And it's just a really pretty palette that I really hadn't played with for a while until this winter, and it felt like winter to me. Next up, I actually pulled 2 palettes from this brand. The first palette that I'm going to talk about from Cosmic Brushes is the Cool Trails palette. Now, for some reason when I first got this palette and reviewed it, could not say the name Cool Trails to save my life. I think I got it now. But this I feel like is the very quintessential winter palette. It's like wintry storm vibes. You have the dark blues, you have the grays, but what I really love about this palette is that it's so cool toned. Now, my skin tends to be kind of like more cool, neutral leaning, so cool tone colors look best on it. It really also makes my eyes pop quite a bit. Okay, I had to grab the other cat. This is Hunter, who was creating a scene, as always. And ignore the cat tail. Oh my god, cat tail, cat fur. You just can't escape it in my house. But the shimmers of this palette are really beautiful as well. Like, I'm not gonna be swatching everything because we would be here forever. But let me see, which is the one? Swatch this one. So this is Affinity and is just such a pretty blue. Look at that. Super pretty. So this really is a palette that reminds me of like the blues, the storminess of winter, and I love it. It's great. I wish more people would talk about Beauty Bay because Beauty Bay has some of the most fantastic formulations and some of the most affordable eyeshadow palettes as well. This is the Dark Fantasy palette from Beauty Bay. This is another one where it very much is like the jewel tones kind of got me. I don't know what it is about Christmas lights. I love them. Who doesn't, right? They're so much fun. But this just reminds me of like a Christmas light display. You know, it's like bright, it's festive. It's like kind of got that earthy tone vibes going on, and I appreciate that. And look at how beautiful the shimmers are. Like, they just go on so smoothly. They're pigmented, they're easy to work with, like the mattes as well, but the shimmers are really beautiful. And I think with this palette, it's really easy to do a deeper, more jewel tone look without it being overwhelming. Sometimes if I wear too much dark eyeshadow, it just ages me. And I don't feel like this palette does that. It's like, some of them are darker, but they still have those beautiful shimmers that bring a lightness to the look. So really have been liking this one for winter. I will never get rid of this palette, okay? I am so sad they discontinued it because I think this might be one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes from Natasha Denona, but this is the Metropolis palette. Definitely an older palette, but this is like, you just go on a trip every time you play with this palette because there are so many different formulations, so many different types of eyeshadows in here. You really never know what you're gonna get until you get in there and you start playing with it. And it is just a fun, beautiful palette. This is definitely a very warm toned palette, but I just have so much fun playing with it. And they've got these like deep greens. They've got some beautiful olive greens in here as well. And what I like is that you can do a more neutral look with this palette. So if you wanna do like a really vibrant red lip and not like draw attention away from the lip, this is a great palette for that because the neutral colors just perform so perfectly. I miss when Natasha Denona used to do palettes like this where the pan size was smaller, but you got so many different variations and formulations and everything is so beautiful. This is just a fantastic palette, and even though it kind of gives me fall vibes, we've got a lot of orangey browns in here, I've been using it a lot this winter. This palette may not come as a surprise to you if you watched my review, which if you're interested, you can search for it in my channel, but this is from Enle Cosmetics, and this is the Gargoyle palette. And this is definitely one of my favorite launches of the year. I don't know if it's my top favorite, I have to think about that, but definitely in the top 5. I had so much fun playing with this palette, and I loved the look that I made on camera. I played with it quite a bit since then. It's another one where you're kind of getting Cool Trails vibes, where you have the dark and stormy blues, you've got the grays, you've got kind of just a darker, earthier kind of color story, and I really like that. Now, I live in a part of California where we don't get snow, so we definitely get some dark and stormy clouds in the sky. Sometimes we even get rain, but we definitely don't get snow. So I still like the earthier tones for winter. That kind of feels like my winter a little bit better, more than just like a snowy winter, right? Like all blues and whites, that doesn't really represent my winter, but more earthy tones. We see like bare ground, we see leaves on the ground. Apparently we're looking at the ground a lot. You know, earthier tones though. That's kind of what I've been reaching for this winter. And this palette is just, oh my gosh, so pretty. This color, Dismal Sky. I know I said I wasn't gonna swatch things, but I just think that color is so pretty. This palette really was a surprise for me. I did not think I would love it as much as I did. And after playing with it a few times, it's a great palette. The mattes work great, they're easy to blend out, and the shimmers are just so pretty. And what's great is you can use one of the darker mattes and then just put a little bit of glitter glue in the middle of your eye on top of the matte, and put on some of that shimmer, and it just makes such a great, fantastic look for the holidays. It's kind of perfect. It was hard for me to choose which Enle Rain eyeshadow palette I wanted to include in this video, but ultimately I've really been feeling cooler tones this winter, so I had to go with the Cold Moon palette. Now what's funny is I just did a review of their Lighten Your Eyes palette, and someone commented on that video and they said, this one's kind of a boring looking palette, which I agreed with. And they're like, but the Cold Moon one is even more boring. But I love the Cold Moon palette. I think it's fantastic. These shimmers are insane. Like, that's one thing that I think Enle Rain is pretty well known for. And I just love the overall color story. I love the mauvey purples. I like the cool tone browns. It's just so pretty. And then you have like these multi-chromes that are flaky and shifty. And you're like, what are you? I don't know, but I want you on my eyes. That's how I feel about Enle Rain. It's just so pretty. And even like the basic shimmers, like the silver in here is such a rich and pigmented silver. And it just is like Cold Moon, come on. Cold winter, it's perfect for winter. The other palette from Cosmic Brushes that I ended up pulling out is this Sinister palette, which is another one which probably won't surprise you if you saw the review. Now, Cosmic Brushes did a mystery box during fall, and it was probably the best mystery box that I've ever opened because every single product in there was something new, and that included this palette. And we've got some reds, which is perfect for the holidays. We've got some purples, which you know I love. And I just thought this palette was like a weird, perfect color story, like for winter, because I love purples and I really like how the reds function. I really liked Damned. I thought that was such a good red. And I don't know, I just really fell in love with this palette. We've been talking about silvers. I think silvers are just a staple when it comes to the winter time. So the silver in this one is quite pretty. You've got like a gunmetal silver and it just looks great. Again, a lot of the times I like to focus on one part of my face. So if I'm doing like a bright red lip, I'll typically do a more toned down kind of like eyeshadow look. And I feel like this palette is really good for that because you have some lighter colors. You can go a little lighter with your look if you want. The shimmers tend to be a little bit lighter in this palette as well, which is really good when you're doing a bright lip. And I was just like surprised by how well everything worked. I sometimes have had issues with some of Cosmic Brushes palettes, and I didn't have any issues with this palette. I thought it worked beautifully. I love the look that I came up with. I love the reds, I really do. And come on, red is, you know, red is a good holiday color, so you can't go wrong with a good red. It was just a really good palette. Adept Cosmetics is another brand. It's an indie brand. I absolutely love them. They kind of just stole the show this year with their eyeshadow palettes. So I was going through which palette I really wanted to use most during the winter, and I had to go with Flying Fiddles. And this one is definitely kind of similar to some of the ones we've seen where it's a darker color story. You've got a lot of darker mattes in this palette, but the shimmers are so light and beautiful. Like Blue Crown is just a fantastic color. Let's see if I can swatch it. Like, look how beautiful that is. Such a good color. The other shimmers are the same. Like, they're these really impactful, beautiful, bright shimmers that I think pair really, really well with the deeper dark mattes. Oh my god, my cats are gonna drive me insane. Definitely not as bright as a lot of their other palettes, but that's kind of why I picked it. It was giving me more of a winter vibe, just like the darker, deeper, stormier colors, and just with the offset of the really bright, beautiful shimmers in this palette. So that's the one that I've been reaching for quite a bit this winter. Okay, this one might surprise you a little bit. NAD Cosmetics comes out with fantastic eyeshadow palettes. The one that I've been reaching for this winter is the Royal Europe palette. First of all, I don't know if this is like laser cut, but I think the cover is so cool for this. This is a bright, bright jewel tone palette. Again, this is exactly what I think of when I think of Christmas lights, okay? It is so bright. The colors are so vibrant and pigmented. It is kind of like an out of this world palette. They did such a fantastic job. The bottom row is all multi-chromes and they're all just stunning. This is St. Edward's Crown. I think I'm running out of room on my hand. Let's see. There we go. Hopefully you can see this. But this is an absolutely stunning eyeshadow palette, and I just really have been reaching for those bright jewel tone colors. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's to ward off the dark and stormy weather, which it is definitely overcast today. So this is a great palette to offset the weather. So apparently I'm either doing my eyeshadow to match the weather or to be the opposite of the weather. Maybe it's the Pisces in me, I don't know. But this is just an absolutely beautiful palette. Love, love, love. And yeah, I've been reaching for it a lot this winter. Okay. This might be a little controversial. I don't think this was a huge favorite of Twilight fans, but I loved it, okay? This is ColourPop's Twilight eyeshadow palette. I just think it feels like winter. Now, I am not I don't know what they call themselves, Twihards? Is that what they call themselves? Is that the Twilight fandom? But I have read the first book because my roommate was like, you should read the first book. So I did. Wasn't really for me, but I get why people like it. I've seen clips from the movies, and this palette is just, I feel like it fits it so well. It's dark, stormy, earthy. It just feels like winter. And these shimmers are fantastic. Even the weird one in the corner, this one is like that weird, it's kind of like a Super Shock gel formula. It's a little bit weird, but it's so sparkly, and it's called Edward. So obviously it has to be sparkly because you're representing, right, the sparkly vampire. But that's what this palette is. Hopefully you're seeing this. I'm sorry if I'm pointing it in the wrong direction. I can totally see myself doing that. But it's just like a sparkly vampire lost in the forest in the winter. And it's just really good. So this is what I have on my eyes. I was playing with it. I've been playing with it this week. I just think it performs really well. I think they did a really good job with this palette. The mattes are easy to use. They're pigmented. The shimmers are just so shimmerful. Like, it's just sparkly vampire. It's perfect. And okay, I think the town that it takes place in is like Forks, right? And it's always overcast, which is perfect for vampires. And it's just a winter vibe, right? Okay, tell me if you think I'm wrong. But I just thought they actually did a really good job with this palette. Hated the Super Shock highlighters that came out with this collection. Love the palette. So those are the top 10 eyeshadow palettes that I have been using this winter. I would love to know your opinion. Do you think I completely missed the mark? Do you think my cats are gonna drive me crazy? What has been your go-to palette this winter? I would love to hear from you. And don't forget while you're here to hit that like and subscribe button. That would mean the world to me. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.